Today, Tuesday, August 18th, 2026, we are looking at 7 important developments from Ogun, Delta, Ondo, Lagos, and Edo. These stories may appear unrelated at first. One involves suspected one-chance robbers. Another concerns escaped suspects being recaptured. There is also a disturbing alleged case of a son killing his mother, a fatal truck crash on the Shagamu-Benin Expressway, and a controversial blockade that has reportedly left residents of an estate in Lagos struggling to enter and leave their homes. We will also examine the complaints of Ogun farmers who say years of alleged destruction of their crops by suspected herders have pushed them towards serious financial losses and insecurity. And finally, we will examine perhaps the biggest figure in today's report, the destruction of illicit drugs estimated at N301.06 billion, alongside the arrest of suspected drug traffickers in Edo State. Together, these stories raise a much bigger question. What do these incidents tell us about security, law enforcement, food production, public safety, and the everyday struggle of Nigerians to live and work peacefully? Let's examine them one after another. Story 1. Police arrest 2 suspected one-chance robbers in Ogun. We begin in Ogun State, where the police have arrested 2 men suspected of belonging to a one-chance robbery syndicate operating in Abeokuta. According to a report by PUNCH, the suspects were identified as 29-year-old Bidemi Tijani and 42-year-old Olajide Rasak. They were arrested on August 15th following an intelligence-led operation by the Violent Crime Response Unit of the Ogun State Police Command. The police said intelligence had indicated that members of the suspected syndicate were operating under the disguise of commercial taxi operators. The suspects were reportedly sighted in a taxi heading towards Ita Ocean in Abeokuta. Police operatives then moved in. According to the police account, the tactical team gave the vehicle a hot chase towards Ita Ocean and eventually intercepted it. The 2 suspects were arrested. The police said that during interrogation, both men confessed to being active members of a one-chance robbery syndicate allegedly terrorizing commuters within Abeokuta. The police have said that their investigation is continuing, particularly to identify and arrest other members of the alleged syndicate and recover exhibits connected to their activities. Now, let's pause here. The issue of one-chance robbery is particularly frightening because it exploits something Nigerians do every day. Transportation. A passenger sees what appears to be an ordinary commercial vehicle. The person enters. But instead of reaching the intended destination, the passenger allegedly becomes a victim of robbery or other forms of criminal activity. That is why intelligence-led policing is important. The police cannot be everywhere at every moment. But information from residents, transport workers, and members of the public can help law enforcement identify criminal networks before more people become victims. The Ogun State Police Command has urged residents and commuters to remain vigilant and report suspicious activities. The command also provided emergency contacts through which residents can seek help. The bigger lesson here is simple. Public safety is not only the responsibility of the police. It also requires responsible citizens who report suspicious activities early. But citizens must equally be able to trust that when they provide information, the security agencies will respond quickly and professionally. The arrest of 2 suspects is therefore only the beginning. The real test will be whether the police can dismantle the wider network allegedly behind the operation. Who supplies the vehicles? Who recruits the drivers? Who identifies potential victims? Where are the stolen items taken? And how many victims may already have suffered? Those are the questions that a serious investigation should answer. Story 2. 8 of 11 escaped suspects re-arrested in Delta. From Ogun, we move to Delta State. Here, the issue is not simply criminal activity outside a police facility. It concerns suspects who allegedly escaped from lawful custody. According to the Nigeria Police Force, 11 suspects escaped from a police facility in the Ughelli area of Delta State. But the police have now announced that 8 of the 11 suspects have been re-arrested. The arrests followed intelligence-led efforts by security operatives. The case has been transferred to the State Criminal Investigation Department in Asaba for investigation. This development immediately raises questions about security within police detention facilities. When people who are already in lawful custody escape, it creates a second security problem. The original allegations against the suspects remain unresolved, while the escaped individuals become a potential threat to the public. So the re-arrest of 8 is significant. But 3 suspects remain at large, according to the report. That means the operation is not over. The police must not only recapture the remaining suspects. They must also determine exactly how the escape happened. Were there weaknesses in the facility? Was there negligence? Was there outside assistance? Were established detention procedures followed? These questions matter because preventing escapes is part of effective policing. The police also reported other operational successes in the same update. In Anambra State, officers reportedly arrested a 49-year-old man at Obosi and recovered a pump-action gun and 50 live cartridges. In Kogi State, security forces secured the release of 12 abducted victims, who were taken to a police headquarters, debriefed and reunited with their families. So, while the Delta escape highlights a weakness that must be investigated, the wider police report also points to ongoing intelligence-led operations across several states. The lesson is that security is a continuous process. One successful arrest does not end the problem. One escaped suspect can create another problem. One rescued kidnapping victim is a success, but preventing future abductions remains the larger objective. Story 3. Ondo man arrested over alleged killing of his mother. Now we move to Ondo State, where a deeply disturbing case has been reported. The police have arrested a man identified as Samuel Akud, following the alleged killing of his mother, Mrs. Olufunke Akud, in Odigbo local government area. According to Punch, the incident occurred on Sunday, August 16th, at about 5 p.m. in the Powerline area of O. The police said the woman was found dead at her residence with deep machete injuries. A machete suspected to have been used in the attack was recovered from the scene. The suspect reportedly fled before the arrival of the police but was subsequently arrested following efforts by police operatives. The case has now been transferred to the State Criminal Investigation Department in Akure for further investigation. This is not merely a crime story. It is also a painful reminder of how violence within families can have devastating consequences. A home is supposed to be a place of safety. A mother should be able to expect protection from her children. But when alleged violence enters the family, the consequences can be irreversible. It is important, however, to emphasize that the suspect is alleged to have committed the crime. The investigation must establish exactly what happened, why it happened and whether anyone else was involved. We should avoid rushing to judgment before the evidence is fully examined. At the same time, The incident raises broader questions about conflict resolution, family disputes, and the availability of intervention mechanisms when tensions become dangerous. Sometimes warning signs exist before a violent incident. Threats, serious arguments, domestic conflicts, substance abuse, mental or emotional distress, long-running family disputes. When such warning signs appear, relatives, community leaders, and appropriate authorities should not simply dismiss them as family matters. There are situations where intervention can prevent tragedy. The Ondo Police Command has said the investigation will be conducted thoroughly and professionally. That is exactly what Nigerians should expect. The family has lost a life. The justice system must now establish the truth. Story 4. One killed as trucks collide on Shagamu-Benin Expressway. Our fourth story takes us to one of Nigeria's major transportation corridors, the Shagamu-Benin Expressway. A road crash at the J4 section of the expressway has reportedly left one person dead and another injured. According to the Ogun State Traffic Compliance and Enforcement Agency, the accident occurred around 12 noon. The crash involved a white Howo truck with registration number FSK274XA and a blue tractor without a registration number. 3 male adults were reportedly involved. One was injured. Another died. The traffic agency said eyewitnesses attributed the crash to excessive speeding and loss of control by the truck driver. Trace and police operatives arrived at the scene and began rescue and traffic management operations. The victims were taken to Hope Hospital, J4, for medical attention. Traffic was reportedly affected during the evacuation, but normal movement was later restored. Again, we see a recurring problem on Nigerian roads. Speed. Speeding may appear harmless when the road is open. But when something unexpected happens, excessive speed can turn a manageable situation into a fatal collision. Heavy vehicles are particularly dangerous because of their size, weight, and stopping distance. This is why truck and articulated vehicle drivers must exercise extreme caution. But road safety is not only about drivers. It involves road design, vehicle maintenance, enforcement, driver training, fatigue management, brake systems, traffic control, and the condition of the vehicles themselves. The fact that the blue tractor reportedly had no registration number also raises questions that authorities should examine. Who owned it? Was it roadworthy? Was it properly authorized to operate on that road? Were all relevant safety requirements satisfied? These questions matter because every road death represents more than a statistic. Someone's father, someone's husband, someone's son, someone's brother. A family is left to deal with the consequences long after traffic returns to normal. And so, the warning from Trace against excessive speed should not be treated as another routine announcement. It is a life-saving warning. Story 5. Oniro Estate residents say 2-month blockade has left them stranded. Now we move to Lagos, where a property dispute has reportedly created a serious access problem for residents of Otazona Estate in the Oniru area. According to Punch, residents say they have been trapped in their homes for nearly 2 months following an alleged takeover of the estate by a property management company. The residents said the estate's gates were sealed on June 22 after more than 25 armed men reportedly arrived with court bailiffs. The men allegedly claimed that a court had granted their principal possession of the estate. Residents say the gates were locked and notices were placed on houses. This is where the matter becomes particularly serious. The dispute is not simply about ownership of land. It is about access to people's homes. Residents reportedly include families with children and elderly people. Some say they cannot freely use their vehicles. Others reportedly have to walk through water to get to the estate gates. One resident described a frightening incident involving a 4-month-old baby who developed a high temperature during the night. The family's car was inaccessible, and they reportedly faced difficulties finding transportation to a hospital. Residents have also expressed concern about the possibility of fire or another emergency occurring while the gates remain locked. Imagine a fire engine arriving at an estate but being unable to enter. Imagine an ambulance being needed urgently but access being blocked. Imagine an elderly person requiring emergency medical assistance. This is why property disputes must be handled through lawful and carefully supervised processes. According to the residents, there are 8 property owners in the estate and they say they possess deeds of assignment and governor's consent. They also contend that the court case involved Artisanal Gardens Limited, which they say was the development company, rather than the individual residents of Artisanal Estate. They further alleged that negotiations included demands for money, while residents disputed the claim that they owed money to the party asserting ownership. Punch reported that efforts to reach the party claiming ownership were unsuccessful. Because this is a property and legal dispute, we should be careful not to declare one side right or wrong without examining the court documents and hearing all parties. But there is one principle that should concern everybody. Whatever the ownership dispute, residents should not be placed in a situation where their safety is compromised. Access to emergency services must be protected. Children must be able to live safely. The elderly and people with disabilities must be able to move. And disputes over land should ultimately be resolved through lawful judicial and administrative procedures rather than prolonged confrontation. This case also demonstrates why Nigerians buying property must conduct proper due diligence. Before purchasing land or a house, people should verify title documents, ownership, planning approvals, and any pending litigation. A beautiful house does not automatically mean a secure property. The documents behind the property matter. Story 6. Ogun farmers protest alleged herders, attacks and farm destruction. Our 6th story takes us back to Ogun State. Farmers from 10 communities in Obafemi Owode local government area have protested what they describe as devastating destruction of their farms by suspected herders. The affected communities reportedly include Ogunmakin, Aigunle, Aluoge, Shawunmi, Yakoyo, Lemomo, and Bere. The farmers claim that over approximately 10 years, their losses from cattle grazing on their farms could amount to at least N100 million. They say crops allegedly destroyed include cassava, maize, sugarcane, potatoes, and plantains. They also say the problem has become a threat not only to their livelihoods but to food production and community security. This is a major issue. Nigeria is repeatedly told that food production must increase. Government policies encourage Nigerians to return to agriculture. Farmers are encouraged to borrow money, cultivate land and produce food. But what happens when a farmer invests money in a farm and animals destroy the crops? What happens when the farmer borrowed money to plant? What happens when the harvest disappears before it can be harvested? The farmer does not only lose food. The farmer loses investment. The farmer may be unable to repay loans. The farmer may become discouraged. And eventually, the farmer may abandon agriculture altogether. That has consequences for food prices and food security. The farmers who protested said several meetings with other leaders had failed to provide a lasting solution. They appealed to President Bola Tinubu, Ogun State Governor Dapo Abiodun, the Ogun State House of Assembly and security agencies to intervene. One farmer said he had borrowed N1 million to invest in farming but had nothing to show for it because cattle allegedly destroyed his crops. Another protester alleged that his wife had previously been attacked and nearly raped while going to the farm. These are serious allegations. They must be investigated properly. At the same time, the solution must not be allowed to become a new source of violence. Farmers have explicitly said they do not want confrontation. That is important, because the history of farmer-herder conflict in Nigeria shows how quickly disputes over land, grazing and crops can escalate into wider communal violence. The answer cannot be revenge. The answer must be effective law enforcement, clear land use rules, accountability for destruction, dialogue and practical mechanisms for preventing cattle from entering cultivated farms. There must also be consequences where criminal conduct is established. Farmers should not feel abandoned. At the same time, law-abiding herders should not be collectively labeled criminals because of the actions of individuals. The goal should be simple. Farmers must be able to farm safely, and livestock owners must be able to conduct legitimate business without destroying other people's livelihoods. If Nigeria wants cheaper food, then the people producing that food must be protected. Story 7. NDLEA destroys N301bn worth of illicit drugs. We now come to perhaps the most financially significant story in today's analysis. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency has destroyed illicit drugs estimated to be worth N301.06 billion. The NDLEA said the destroyed substances weighed approximately 329,865.585 kilograms. That is almost 330,000 kilograms. The drugs were destroyed at Navy Town, Ojo, Lagos, following orders of the Federal High Court, Lagos Judicial Division. According to the agency, the substances came from concluded cases and abandoned seizures. They included cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, cannabis, opioids, and other controlled substances. The NDLEA said its Lagos Strategic Command alone seized 246,864.535 kilograms between April 2025 and May 2026. Another 83,001.05 kilograms were recovered by other strategic commands and units operating in Lagos. This is enormous, and the significance goes beyond the financial value. The NDLEA Chairman and Chief Executive Officer, Brigadier General Mohammed Bubamawa, said illicit drugs represent a threat beyond addiction. He linked drug trafficking with organized crime, terrorism and violent extremism. That is an important point. When criminal organizations make money from drugs, those profits can potentially finance other criminal activities. The drug market therefore becomes more than a public health problem. It becomes a security and economic problem. The Lagos state government also described the destruction of about 300 tons of narcotics and psychotropic substances as evidence of the scale of the threat facing communities, particularly young people. But there is another important dimension to this story. The NDLEA also reported major operations in Edo State. The agency said it destroyed 2 cannabis plantations with a combined estimated yield of about 4,628.98 kilograms. One of the farms was in Ubuku, Igbanke Forest, in Ohiomwan local government area. A suspect identified as Agolo Eleboje was arrested in connection with one of the farms. The agency said the second farm was also destroyed, while processed cannabis was recovered. Separately, NDLEA operatives reportedly raided drug flashpoints in Oluku and Abuja quarters in Benin City and arrested 10 suspected male drug traffickers. One suspect, Kingsley Anigala, was allegedly found with cannabis and methamphetamine. 9 others were arrested at Abuja quarters with various quantities of cannabis, loud, tramadol, diazepam, swinol, danabol and methamphetamine. The NDLEA said the suspects were in custody and investigations were continuing in preparation for prosecution. Now, the bigger question is, can destroying drugs solve Nigeria's drug problem? The answer is no, not by itself. Drug destruction is important because seized substances cannot be allowed back onto the streets. Arresting traffickers is important. Dismantling supply networks is important. But demand also matters. If there is a huge market for illicit drugs, criminal networks will continue looking for ways to supply that market. Therefore, Nigeria needs a comprehensive approach. Prevention, education, treatment, rehabilitation, law enforcement, border control, financial investigation, community awareness, and strong prosecution. Parents have a role. Schools have a role. Religious organizations have a role. Traditional institutions have a role. Government has a role. And young people themselves must understand the danger of becoming involved in drug trafficking or drug abuse. The N301bn figure should therefore not merely shock us. It should make us ask, how much money is flowing through Nigeria's illicit drug economy? How many young Nigerians are being recruited? How many communities are being affected? How much organized crime is being financed through drug trafficking? And how many lives can still be saved through prevention and early intervention? What connects these 7 stories? At first glance, these 7 stories seem completely different. But look closely. They are all connected by one major issue: the security and welfare of ordinary Nigerians. The one chance robbery story is about commuters trying to move from one place to another safely. The Delta escape story is about the ability of the criminal justice system to keep suspects in lawful custody. The Ondo murder case is about the protection of life, even within families. The road crash is about the safety of Nigerians traveling on major highways. The Oniro Estate dispute is about residents being able to access their homes and obtain emergency assistance. The Ogun farmers' protest is about protecting the people who produce food. And the NDLEA operation is about protecting communities from criminal drug networks. So, beneath these 7 headlines is one central question. How safe is the average Nigerian? Safety is not only about preventing terrorism. It is also about whether you can enter a taxi without being robbed. Whether you can travel on a highway without becoming a victim of reckless driving. Whether your farm will survive until harvest. Whether an ambulance can reach your home. Whether a police station can securely hold suspects. Whether your community is protected from criminal networks. And whether young people can grow up without being trapped in the drug economy. The bigger issue, security must go beyond arrests. There is something else these stories teach us. Nigeria cannot measure security success only by the number of people arrested. Arrests are important. But what happens afterwards? If suspects are arrested but escape custody, there is a problem. If suspected robbers are arrested but their wider network survives, the problem continues. If drug dealers are arrested but the market remains profitable, new dealers may emerge. If farmers complain repeatedly but the underlying conflict is unresolved, another protest may occur. If a property dispute remains unresolved while residents remain trapped, tension continues. Therefore, security must be measured by outcomes. Are people safer? Are criminals being prosecuted? Are victims receiving justice? Are communities becoming more secure? Are farmers able to farm? Are roads becoming safer? Are young people being protected from drugs? These are the questions that matter. Conclusion. As we conclude, these 7 stories leave us with a sobering picture of the challenges facing Nigeria. In Ogun, police have arrested 2 suspected one-chance robbers, but the alleged wider syndicate still has to be dismantled. In Delta, 8 of 11 escaped suspects have been recaptured, but questions remain about how the escape happened and where the remaining 3 suspects are. In Ondo, a man has been arrested following the alleged killing of his mother, while investigators work to establish the full circumstances. On the Shagamu-Benin Expressway, a crash has reportedly claimed 1 life and injured another, reminding motorists that excessive speed can have irreversible consequences. In Lagos, residents of Otazona Estate say a prolonged property dispute has restricted access to their homes and created serious concerns about emergencies. In Ogun, farmers say years of alleged attacks and destruction have cost them at least N100 million and are threatening their livelihoods. And in Lagos and Edo, the NDLEA is intensifying the fight against illicit drugs, destroying substances valued at more than N301 bn and arresting suspected traffickers. The common message is clear. Nigeria's security challenge is not one-dimensional. It is on our roads, in our communities, on our farms, in our homes, in our transport system, in our detention facilities, and in the criminal networks that profit from illicit drugs. The response therefore must also be comprehensive. Government must strengthen institutions. Security agencies must improve intelligence and accountability. The justice system must ensure that investigations lead to credible prosecution. Communities must cooperate with law enforcement. And citizens must remain vigilant without taking the law into their own hands. Most importantly, Nigerians must not become accustomed to insecurity. A robbery should not become normal. A preventable road death should not become normal. Farm destruction should not become normal. Blocked access to homes should not become normal. Drug trafficking should not become normal. And violence within families should never become normal. These are not just headlines. Behind every headline is a human being. And behind every statistic is a family, a community or a future that may have been affected. This is why we must continue to ask difficult questions, demand accountability and look beyond the immediate headlines. Thank you for watching. If you found this analysis useful, please like this video, subscribe to Akahi News, share it with others and turn on your notification bell so you do not miss our next analysis. Until next time, stay informed, stay vigilant and stay safe. By Joseph Iyaji, Akahi News.